Cecil, you're here, right?
Yes.
And Thomas, John is absent today. And I'm okay. Approval of minutes from the preceding meeting, the November 14th Planning Commission meeting. Does anybody have any comments or anything they'd like to comment on, change? If not, then I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the meeting, the minutes for the November 14th meeting.
I'll second that motion. Okay, all in favor, Blake,
Yes.
Tom,
Abstain.
Janice,
Yes.
Jim,
Here, yes.
Cecil,
Yes.
okay, and I approve minutes. Approved. Any declarations of communications or anything like that from anybody?
I have a declaration. I believe I received the same email that we all did, but I also had a text message from an individual on a matter this evening.
Okay. Planning director's reports.
I'm having technical difficulties. I'm not sure what's happened. Connection. So my agenda has gone. Let me try
Oh.
this.
Right. Give it a try. We'll be okay.
Is that it? You just need to scroll?
You're all right. We've all got copies of the agenda, so.
Is the connection with the wall is loose or something?
So Diana, as long as as long as Cecil can hear the meeting and he's got his packet, we're probably okay.
I don't know why the rest of the agenda is not.
Loading,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. I would just stop sharing. And if somebody with a microphone wants to let them notice to follow along on their screen.
Cecil, it seems like the agenda isn't loading on the Zoom page there, so just if you will follow along with the packet that with your agenda that you have. And if you have any questions, just stop me and. Okay. I think we got to the planning director's report.
Planning director's report.
Yes, we have had 67 new single family homes this year, which is, as you can see in your packet there, that exceeds last year, and certainly we've had a little flurry at the end of the year, which I'm very excited about, obviously. And if memory serves me correctly, we have 4 multifamily residential permits that have been issued. Dollar Tree is up and going. We issued their permit a couple of weeks ago, and you can see they started to move dirt and they are ready to get going. Taco Bell is very nearing completion. We're wrapping up just a couple of loose ends on those items. So those are 2 pretty exciting developments. And then I know the UPS store has come up recently, and we're hopeful that they will be ready to open in the next few months here, hopefully by spring anyhow. So a lot of things happening. We're excited.
New business, item number 5, PADM -009 -23. Text amendment to Baser zoning regulations, Article 7, mixed use neighborhood district, and Appendix A dwelling, multifamily dwelling, single-family attached townhomes, and a public hearing is required.
Yes, thank you very much. This item is before you. This is a text amendment to our zoning regulations, very similar to previous text amendments that we have had. As staff is working through the development process for not only the city as a whole, but also for Basehor Town Center across the street, we are wanting to make sure that all of our regulations are in alignment with one another and there aren't any contradictories throughout the document so that we don't have issues down the road with, again, any sort of development, but also again, in preparation for the development of Basehor Town Center. And in doing so, one of the things that we have come across is in Article 7, which is where the development requirements are laid out for specific zoning districts. In this case, the mixed use 1 zoning district, which is neighborhood mixed use. The text of that document clearly states that there would be residential development allowed above or below commercial development, indicating that multifamily development is allowed. However, if you go over to Appendix A, which is at the end of that zoning document, there is the box is just blank under multifamily, which indicates that it's not an allowed use. So those two things are incompatible with one another, obviously. Also, one of the things that we noticed is in our current mixed use zoning districts, it states that this mixed use must be vertical only. It could not be horizontal, meaning that you could have, commercial and then residential and then commercial within the same structure, but you couldn't have commercial, residential, commercial all lumped together in a nearby one another. That is your horizontal mixed use. So we have clarified to allow that allows for a couple of different development types and allows more flexibility in development. And so this zoning regulation change before you is simply to clarify those things that multifamily is indeed allowed. It does also increase the allowance from 45 feet to 60 feet for these structures, which is more in line with what we see in neighboring jurisdictions and also more in line with some of the development that we see just to the south of this area that we're specifically looking at. Again, it's important to remember that these zoning regulations will apply to any development within a mixed use zoning district, not just across the street. So if, someone else were to apply for a mixed use zoning change, these new regulations would apply to that as well. An example of a type of development that might occur with these types of regulations is the Lenexa City Center. That's certainly fairly dense. That's a much larger city than Basehor, obviously, but still that same idea where you have restaurants and commercial and residential all, together in one area. It's walkable, it's dense. You're able to really capitalize on space. And then also to promote the conservation of land because you're able to put things closer together. So that's the idea here behind this. Obviously, staff certainly recommends approval of this. Commissioner Lally, you did make mention of the correspondence that you all received. That correspondence has been received by everyone on the Planning Commission. That correspondence will be made part of the packet that is presented to the City Council. So I just want to acknowledge that correspondence was received. As you stated, this does require a public hearing, so if you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to answer them, as is Mr. Heaven, who is here, obviously, special counsel to the city. And with that, I conclude my report. Thank you.
Am I,
Go ahead.
so am I out of line? I missed that email. It's probably my fault. Am I out of line asking what that said from whomever?
Would you like to read?
I've got
Yeah.
a copy of it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Of course
thank
you're
you.
not.
Yeah, and that way I won't hold you up. I just want to be aware of it. I missed it
course.
for some reason. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I need to make a motion for opening for a public hearing.
I don't believe you need to make a motion to open the public hearing. It's required.
Okay.
Crystal, I have a quick question, because I'm still gaining my feet here to understand what the regulations are, but I was reading under use limitations, item E. And where it says each dwelling unit shall provide for a minimum of 750 square feet of living floor area.
Mhm.
Is that like for an apartment?
Yes, it could be. So
So that
those
would be-
regulations are also called out in our subdivision regulations, which is a separate document that lays out the required minimum square footages for different housing types. So yes, 750 feet, you would.
That would be
typically
like
see
a
in
1-bedroom apartment,
Yeah,
but you could go more than.
larger than that.
Okay.
Yes, it's just,
All right,
it's a
so that's
minimum.
not what everything would be restricted to.
Right, correct.
Okay, all right. Thinking that's kind of kinky.
Do we currently have any mixed use zonings in Baser right now?
Yes, we do.
Very many of them?
No, not very many. Just a very small handful, maybe one or certainly one. There's maybe a second one. I can't recall off the top of my head, but I know that there's one.
And the plan would be that when the city center goes forward, you'll probably request an MU-1 zoning for that, right?
There is currently some MU1 zoning over there as we
Okay.
speak. So yes.
And so that's where it would be, okay?
Mhm.
And if a property currently has another zoning than that, and it was going to be rezoned to MU-1, it would be presented to the planning commission, and we would make have a vote, we would consider it and have a vote on it, right?
Correct. Any request to rezone a property, regardless of where it's located within the city, is required to be heard by the planning commission for consideration and recommendation to the city council. Yes.
Okay, and I think that would partially answer the email we had today about this, because if something is going to be changed to an MU-1 zoning with those requirement or what you just described or what you described in the paperwork here, it would have to come through us and there would be a public hearing and if this gentleman was affected by it, he would be able to come and make his case in front of us. So,
Yes.
okay.
And just to refresh your memories, I think it was maybe last month or the month before when we updated the planned district requirements. That would also the development plan requirements, excuse me, a development plan is required in mixed use zoning districts. So the
Okay.
planning commission would also see the development plan alongside the rezoning request.
So I'm clear in my head that what we're talking mixed use. So I'm thinking as I'm driving down Metcalf, there's the construction that is along Metcalf where they have, I think it may be senior residences or something, but below is like a coffee shop and a sandwich
Mhm.
shop and something, and then upstairs is like apartments. Is that what we're?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, exactly. Yes.
I have a few questions. But Crystal, you answered most of my questions, so nicely done. I really, I want to compliment staff on the presentation of this issue. It was very, very clear and very, very helpful. So thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit or ask a question a little bit more about kind of the public input or on any future development. So as Mr. Owens was talking about, if anyone has any concerns on any future developments, most of those will come to the planning commission. Are there any types of administrative approvals that could be done under this administrative change?
The only administrative approval that could possibly be done is if there was an existing development plan that had already been approved by the planning commission. And they were wanting to make very minor changes to it, which are laid out in the development district regulations, what the planning director can administratively approve. Or if they submitted, so if there was I guess I should have said a preliminary development plan that had been approved. And then if they submitted a final development plan that was in substantial conformance with that, then administratively that can be approved. But otherwise speaking, no, the request has to go before the planning commission and the city council.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else with any questions or comments? Okay, then I will just declare that we have a public hearing. Is there anybody online that wishes to speak or so there's nobody present physically? Okay, then our public hearing is closed. Anybody else with anything to say before we make a motion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll move that we approve PADM -009 -23 text amendment to the Baser zoning regulations, Article 7, mixed use neighborhood district and Appendix A.
I'll second.
Hey, all those in favor, Blake,
Aye.
Tom,
Yes.
Janice, Jim,
Yes.
Cecil,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Reports from special committees? Doesn't look like there are any.
No.
And development report you kind of already talked about with the housing.
Yes, and I'm so sorry. I got myself all mixed up. Typically
okay.
during my director's report, I would have done things like introduce that Mr. Pete Evans here this evening to
All good news.
with with a brief update on Baser Town Center and the TIF process and to provide you all with a framework for what the planning commission's role will be in the development of Baser Town Center. I was just very excited to tell you about our housing permits, so I got ahead of myself. So yes, without further ado, Pete here is here to provide us a little bit of background and again, to provide us with a framework for what our role will be going forward for the development of Baser Town Center. So Pete.
Exciting. That's all I have to say about it. In October, the city council approved the TIF district. for
Does
what
he need a
will be-
microphone? So can Cecil hear him? Okay.
Thank you. I couldn't hear. Thank you.
Is that better?
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. In October, the city council approved a TIF district, which is going to ripen into Baser Town Center. It's about 260 acres. All right. It will be a combination of public space, mixed use development, single family residential. And there's a lot of land to work with. And your part in that's going to become very, very important. Just as a quick refresher, TIF, tax increment financing, is an incentive that we can provide to developers to encourage them to build in our city. And how it works is if we have a piece of land that is paying $10 a year in taxes, then it's improved to where they're paying $100,000 a year in taxes. The increment is the difference between $10 and $100,000, and that increment is then used to build infrastructure. It diverts the taxes back to the city, and then we reimburse the developer for approved costs. And those eligible costs are things like parking lots, grading, utilities, anything horizontal, nothing vertical. So we can't subsidize building a building, but we can certainly bring sewers, water, electricity, those things that are very important in the development of a tract this large. We also can reimburse the developer for a portion of his or her acquisition costs. So let's say they pay $20,000 an acre to the city for the property. We could agree that they would get a rebate through TIF of $10,000 an acre. So they get the property for 50%. Again, it's an economic incentive to get things going. This is our Baser Town Center, basically, the TIF district. And you'll see we have sort of concept areas. You'll see multifamily. The red is commercial and public. Some smaller single family and then more traditional single family. And this is all just concept at this point. And in the upper right-hand corner, park area, which will be public space. So if all goes well, it will develop and look something like that. So where does the Planning Commission come in? Planning Commission, and by passing your amendment tonight on the MU zoning, it was very important we do that so that we can have this horizontal type mixed use development. But Mr. Lally, to answer your question directly, the procedure in our code currently says all mixed use developments will be approved on a case by case basis, subject to approval by the Planning Commission and City Council. So you'll get to see every mixed use development that goes in. So you'll do your traditional zoning, you'll do development plan approval. And then there's one additional item you're going to have to help us with, and that is the statute says that if there's a project plan, and let's just take the multifamily area. Someone comes in with, buys the property and has a plan. We like the plan, we approve the plan. Then in order to activate the TIF, we have to do a project plan. That's something you've never seen before, but it's very similar to a development plan. And the city council approves the project plan, but only if the planning commission finds that that use is consistent with our comprehensive plan. So it's belt and suspenders, making sure we're doing what the comprehensive plan tells us to do. So you'll get an additional look at every TIF project. And you'll be asked to say, does it follow the intent or not? If it doesn't, we start over again. But again, it's a protection for the citizens as well as the city. So that was my one-on-one primer. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I got one.
Sure.
So, in this, I know this is all conceptual, like you said. Do you envision more than one developer will be able to take a piece of this, or is it all going to be under one developer?
No, we anticipate multiple developers.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And then, so-
developers specialize, as
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Some are
Yeah.
multifamily, some are commercial.
So in this, if there's, let's say, 3 different ideas that developers have and they come to us, I'll get through that. So there could potentially be 3 recorded plats, for example, inside this.
multiple,
Is
yeah.
that what you're talking?
Uh,
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was following.
No, absolutely. It's a good question.
Okay.
And if you look at the traditional single family, I would envision we'd have 4 or 5 different developers in
Okay.
that area,
Gotcha.
each with their own sub communities.
Gotcha.
I don't think any developer wants to take down that many lots at once. It'd be pretty difficult. But we've had interest from several single family developers, a couple of multifamily developers, and the commercial will follow.
Do you have like a hope or what kind of commercial you're looking for in that?
The
Okay.
sky's the limit. We've talked about a farmer's market concept with ancillary shops around that, craft type stores. You could go with a larger store. I'm not sure you could go as large as a Dollar General, for example, but a larger retail store, a restaurant. Just, again, it's anybody's dream.
Yeah.
All we're doing is putting together the palette. Somebody has to paint it for us.
For a project this large and this important, is the city considering, or has the city already entered agreement with not a developer, but a real estate professional to go out and attract some of those commercial and residential developers?
Not yet.
Okay, is that a plan?
I don't know what the city council wants to do on that. I mean, I think if it were me, I'd wait to see if there's just sort of organic interest. Because when you get brokers involved, it's a little more expensive. And yet we can always do that as a fallback if we don't have organic growth.
Answer.
And we had some communication about this, and I believe I maybe read or misread that the first thing we were going to be looking at was the apartments or development of the apartment area up there. Or did I misread that?
You did not misread that, that is correct. Yes, we actually just closed an RFP
Mhm.
on that on Monday.
Really? Wow.
I think in my opinion, I think I've been involved in several now, or a couple now, apartment complex rezonings for apartment complexes, and I've always been on the opposing side of it. In this particular case, this looks like a good place to put apartments. And it looks like, this might be the ideal. I mean, I know Basehor needs, multifamily housing. The Basehor lifestyle is single family homes. Like it's 83% of the population of Basehor lives in single family homes, or at least they did last time I calculated it. But I agree that that we need rental properties and we need to have multifamily places. And this looks like it's the ideal. But every time before that I've been involved in a project where apartments were trying to go in, there was complaints from the neighbors that they built their houses and they didn't want apartments next door. If the apartments go in first, I'm sure that the single family home development will go in and everything will be fine, but you won't have that issue of, people, the neighbors objecting, although it appears that there might be some neighbors close by, and I'm fairly confident that they're going to object because every apartment complex I've seen since I've lived here, and I've only been here for 14 years, but every time I've seen an apartment complex come up, it's been opposed and defeated for all intents and purposes. So I think putting apartments in there, starting with the apartments would be the ideal way to start. The one problem I've always had with apartment complexes is ingress and egress. People want to put apartment complexes in existing neighborhoods where there's no way to get in and out, or not a good way to get in and out. I think we need to look at that very closely when we start looking seriously about what we're going to build in there. We need to make sure we've got a lot of good access routes to those apartments so people can get in and out without major traffic problems.
And in our RFP, because we understand, single family homeowners don't like apartments. I mean, it's pretty simple. So in our RFP, we asked the developers to be very sensitive to that. You'll notice in sort of the upper left-hand corner of the multifamily area, there are a few single family homes. So we have built a wide buffer. You'll see that dark green with a trail. My guess is that's about 100 feet. And then we've asked the developers to ring that area with individual villas as opposed to apartments.
Mhm.
So there's sort of a transition from single family back to single family up to the multifamily.
How many apartment units approximately do we anticipate there would be in there?
You could put 800 in there. That won't be, it won't be that many,
Yeah,
but it could accommodate 800 apartments. I'm going to guess maybe 200 to 300.
I have a quick question. So I recall from my days in finance, and I may be, has the district been established yet?
It has.
It has, okay. So as I recall, you go through the motions and the legislation to establish the district, and then you come forward with the plan, and this is the plan. Is this
Right.
correct?
We're at the plan stage.
We're at the
Yes.
plan stage. Okay, okay. And then, so then from this point, then it goes to the council for them,
Actually,
or is it, are we at that stage yet?
the first step is zoning.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure all of that would be zoned MU1. I'm not sure, but it may require some zoning adjustment.
Yeah.
And then a preliminary development plan and a final development
Uh-huh.
plan. And then a project plan.
Uh-huh,
And they can kind of run simultaneously,
uh-huh.
but that will be the sort of the next step.
Yeah, because I know, KCK and Wyandotte County did a lot of TIF districts. And they were really instrumental in revitalizing some areas, especially down around Palo Vista, down around Strawberry Hill was I think one of the first TIF districts that we did. Yeah, and they built some lovely homes down there.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
in an area that was kind of depressed, so. Okay,
Yeah, it's a great tool
Mhm.
to do urban renewal, which is basically what we're doing.
Yeah.
and when this starts to come together, I'm sure we'll have a developer or developers come in and have meetings with the surrounding public to discuss what they're going to do so that if people are informed about it. I'd highly recommend that when those discussions happen, if they're not public and there's a lot of city officials there anyway, we definitely need to have somebody from the city at those meetings, because I know the ones I have been to, there have been some miscommunications between the developer and the people that went to the meetings. And I've seen evidence of that on a couple of occasions where a developer's come in here to talk to us and tell us about his plans and said, I talked to the residents and they're in favor of it. And the residents said, well, we changed our mind. Not anymore. We don't like that. There's a lot of, there can be a lot of miscommunication. And I really think it'd be good to have somebody, you know, city government person or city, city employee at those meetings, just to kind of keep notes to make sure that there's not any misunderstanding, because those kinds of meetings lead to misunderstandings, and I've seen too many of them.
We'll be requiring neighborhood meetings, obviously, and someone from the city will attend those.
Yes.
I'm sure you've been in communication with the school district about,
Oh, a lot.
okay, because I'm sure, yeah, I've got, because obviously Baser Intermediate's gonna need to probably expand with this, and it looks like there's room there they could build on, so that will severely, majorly impact them.
We've had good dealings with the school district. They understand.
Mhm.
And we've agreed, the city council's adopted a policy, pardon me, with regard to Baser Town Center, that when we have projects come in for staff review, a member of the school board or the superintendent will attend.
Good.
So they can kind of stay ahead of maybe some growth patterns.
I have two questions. I'll start the first question off as a statement. In my professional career, I'm an advocate for affordable housing. I work with individuals who are experiencing homelessness, and affordable housing is extraordinarily important throughout the metropolitan area, but it is not right for every location. It has to be a very smart development. So I will ask this question. I'll just ask a very blunt question. Is it the expressed intent of the city and or any of the developers to make all of this affordable housing for this development?
And the intent of the city has been market rate development.
Yes. Would you repeat that in the microphone?
The city council will be looking to develop with market rate apartments.
Thank you. Then the second question is, and I don't ever want to compare us to other municipalities, but there are some wonderful other developments in the metropolitan area. How different is this concept and the process to get from this stage to actual construction? Any different from what Baser is doing right now?
I'll try that one. This is the first of its kind in Kansas City.
Wow. Okay.
There's never been a TIF district this large, a mixed use TIF district that we can find. So we're sort of charting new territory, but all the indications are it's going to work fine. But we're going to be a leader, not a follower on this one.
Thank you.
So when you say market rate rentals, that's very broad. So does that include Section 8?
The market rate would be whatever the market would bear.
Yeah.
In other words,
If
typically
Section
higher
8 is what
rents.
the market bears, it's Section 8. If it's like luxury apartment units, in a
It would
gated
tend to be on the
community,
higher end market rate.
Yeah. Market rates, just whatever the market rate is.
Commissioner, I'm not an expert on public housing, but I do believe HUD sets very, very specific maximums on rent. So I don't think market rate necessarily means Section 8. Matter of fact, I think it's almost sometimes the opposite. Okay.
And I think that's a fair statement. Now, we will be looking at some, what we call attainable housing. It's a little different than affordable. And we're encouraging developers to look at that as being a portion of the multifamily they're building. So maybe a few units that are a little less expensive to allow others to live in the apartment complex.
Okay.
But again, that's gonna be so much driven by the developer.
Yeah.
And his or her plan as opposed to what the city tells them to do.
Yeah.
Because the cities are terrible at telling developers what to do because they don't want to have the city spending their money.
It's good foresight. I'm just kind of anticipating the pushback, you know, in the community, what that's gonna look like. Like Jim said, based on past history, and I know you're all over this, so I'm just. This community's got, well, I don't want to say, it. Never mind.
I think in the end, there's gonna be growing pains, no
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, everybody's gonna be happy with what happens.
Yeah.
I think if the infrastructure is done right, if you can get people in and out, if there's no traffic problems, I think that will answer a lot of the issues that I've heard. I mean, I've heard a lot of illegitimate issues about, you know, we don't want apartments because you're gonna have real low rent people, you're gonna have transients and you're gonna have child molesters and you're gonna have, you know, drug addicts and stuff like that. And I know for a fact that that's not the case, but if you're gonna have apartments, you gotta have good infrastructure so people can get in and out and there's no traffic issues.
What we're finding with apartments, when I was growing up, you lived in an apartment because you couldn't afford anything else. Now people are living in apartments by choice.
Yeah.
Right.
They expect high quality and they're willing to make a house payment to have an apartment so they can lock it and leave it.
Yeah,
Don't
Exactly.
worry about it.
In this area might be a good, this project might be a good one to have some very high-end apartments, because there's people probably would pay good money to rent to stay out in this area. I mean, if you look at some of the houses that are being built out here right now, people have the disposable income to live in pretty nice houses.
Well, and the number of apartments that are going up in the metropolitan area, you know, I'm like, where are all these people coming from? But apparently it's a need.
Well, and that's, so where is the saturation point? That's the big question in my
Yeah.
mind. You know, going back to years back, you know, when we had over 800 lots that were just sitting and not selling and all these things. So I'm just curious, have we done or hired companies to do that? Or is that all on the developer to take care of that?
Yeah,
Yes, that's what we're.
they take all the risk.
There's some interesting data from the Mid-America Regional Council on the lack of housing just across the entire metropolitan area. We are thousands of units short of fulfilling all those needs.
What price range do you know? Just in
All
price
ranges,
ranges,
yes,
all
yes,
price ranges.
yes.
And location makes a huge difference. And this is something we don't have in Baser. And I'm sure there's a demand for it.
Oh, there absolutely demand for it.
I know the school district will be thrilled
Uh-huh.
just to get teachers
Right.
to come here.
And for responders, there are all kinds of folks who
Yep.
be served, better served with.
Mhm.
Good.
Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Cecil, did you have anything?
No, I'm good. I was listening. The questions were my questions were all answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I will then take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor, Blake?
Yes.
Tom?
yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Cecil?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Meeting is adjourned.